They were out of Mountain Dew Zero the last time I went to the grocery store, so I had to settle for Diet Mountain Dew. I feel betrayed. Hi neighbor, my name is Hannah and welcome back to my channel, Pretty Hippie Me. My channel is about fashion, makeup, and life in general, so if you like this video, I hope that you subscribe to my channel and set your notifications to all so you can keep in touch with everything going on here in the neighborhood. Today I am going to be doing a makeup tag video. This one is inspired by the one that Smoky Glow did a few days ago. I will link her video below so you can go watch it, and then she mentions a couple of other creators that she got the tag from. I'll also post the questions to the tag in my description, so if you decide that you want to do this tag too, please do it and let me know about it so I can go see your answers to these questions. This tag is the palette tag, so it's going to be all about eyeshadow palettes, and I don't have a ton, but I feel like I have enough now where I could answer these questions. The first question is to show my newest palette, and my newest palette is actually in the mail. It is a present from my boyfriend for my birthday. Actually, hold on. Baby?
What, baby?
Oh, hi, I have a question.
Sounds like you had a night terror.
Not that I want to know what all my birthday presents are, but did you get the eyeshadow palette that I sent you the link? Okay.
Yeah, that was supposed to be here already, so was the other thing.
Yay. Thanks, baby. So the Juvia's Place palette is in the mail. It's the Juvia's Place The Violets palette, which it just looks super duper pretty, and I've been needing purples, and I saw that it got restocked, and I told my boyfriend, hey, for my birthday. I hope that that counts as being my newest palette, even though it's like not technically here yet. Actually, it just got here yesterday while I've been editing this video, so I'm very excited to use it. I can't wait to show you guys when it's on my face. I'm really looking forward to using it because I've never tried any Juvia's Place before, and I've heard really good things about the quality, so I'm expecting good things. There's some purple eyes that I've been really meaning to do. Next up is to show my oldest palette, and the oldest palette that I have right now is this one, which you can see the age on it. It is this Coastal Scents palette that my sister made for me and gave to me for Christmas. These are all singles that she put in and chose for me, and this is from years ago. She got into makeup way before me. While I was in college, she was already into the makeup scene, and now it's like she's not so much into the YouTube part of makeup anymore that I know of, but now I'm into makeup and I'm into makeup YouTube. It's a nice memory to have as like something that my sister specifically made for me, and I always think that that's really nice. And now that I appreciate makeup, I appreciate the gift a lot more than I did when I first got it. My only reference to the quality of Coastal Scents is my sister saying, I think these are good. I haven't heard about them at all during my time actually paying attention to makeup YouTube the past year and a half, so let me know what's going on with them. Next up is show your most expensive palette, and for me that is the Conspiracy palette, which I just recently got actually, and this has been like definitely my favorite makeup purchase so far. Every time I show this palette I make this disclaimer that I'm not a fan of Jeffree Star, and so I don't usually buy any of his stuff, but I bought this because I enjoy Shane Dawson. Regardless of how you feel about Jeffree Star and Shane, the quality of these are unmistakably awesome. This was definitely my most expensive palette so far. It was in the $50-something range when I got it. I think it was like $52. So far, worth every penny, so I'm not mad about it. Next up is my most affordable palette, and I actually have two for this, which are these two palettes that I got at Dollar Tree. And I made a video about getting dollar store makeup, and I actually had a really fun time using these. This one by Colormates I really don't use very often anymore, but this one by Hard Candy, I do use this. These are basically the only greens in my collection right now, but they're really good. Hard Candy is funny because they're a brand that's sold in a lot of different places. I think it's better quality than being like $1 makeup, because I've seen them for higher costs at like Walmart. So I don't really know why they were for $1 at the Dollar Tree, but I'm also not mad about it. So yeah, these were each $1. Affordable. Good purchase. Okay for $1. Next up is to show your everyday palette, and for me this ranges between two palettes. So for a day like today when I was going for a more neutral nude look, I have the Bare Necessities palette by ColourPop. At first I really struggled with using it. The purples and pinks especially are much more vibrant on camera and in pictures than they are in person, so I struggled at first because those were the colors that attracted me to it, and then I started using them and I was disappointed. As I've I've mentioned before, I'm kind of a makeup beginner. The more I develop my makeup skills, the more I learn how to use these colors and layer them appropriately. And I absolutely love these like very shimmery, I don't know if they're actually glitters or if they're just very shimmery shimmer shades. Like I'll pull this palette out just to use the glitters or shimmers or whatever these are. And then if I want neutrals with like a pop of color, or for a very like pretty colorful look, I go for the Conspiracy palette because of just how easy these are to work with and blend. But I've always been able to make a look come out good. When I'm in a rush, I lean more toward this one because the performance of the shades is more predictable and a little bit more workable than the ColourPop, in my opinion, in my experience. Next up is my most colorful palette, and this is actually a palette I haven't even used yet. I just recently got it and I've been saving it for a collaboration video that I'm doing with a friend of mine, hopefully within the next couple weeks. This one is the BH Cosmetics Take Me Back to Brazil palette, which I'm really excited about using. I just love having like every color of the rainbow in my collection. I just got it a couple weeks ago because there was some kind of like influencer discount code that I used or something. The film is still on it. I literally have not opened it all the way and used it. But I just love the rainbow colors going on. It definitely fills in some of the gaps in my collection, and once I do open it up, I plan to like go ham. This will be my first BH Cosmetics thing that I actually use. So if you have any experience with this palette or another BH Cosmetics eyeshadow palette, let me know what I should expect. And I should mention that this is actually a pressed pigment palette, so it's different than eyeshadow. Pressed pigment shadows are not intended for use around immediate eye area. Discontinue use if signs of irritation or rash appear. So I think it depends on your skin type as to whether or not you might get irritated by the pigments. It might cause some staining, so just keep that in mind with this or any other pressed pigment palettes. Next up is to show you my smallest palette, which is this itty bitty elf palette. I literally have no idea when I got this or for what or for why or for when. It's just this simple like pinky purple little palette. It says base, lid, crease, line. It's very instructional and kind of takes you through it. That's the tiny one. That's the little guy. Then now my biggest palette, once again, I think I have to pull out the Conspiracy palette because it is just huge. Especially because I keep it in the box. Even without the box, this is a loaf. This is a chunk. This is a hunk. There's a lot of mass here, and it's definitely not lacking in shades. Because that was one of my questions, was when they say biggest palette, do they mean the most shades or do they mean the literal size of it? I would consider this to be my biggest in terms of size and mass. In terms of number of shades, that's gonna go to my Take Me Back to Brazil palette because this has 35 shades. Next is the palette with the best memory attached to it. And I think this is actually something that I should have used for my smallest palette, but it's this e.l.f. little trio of browns. Yeah, it's called Brown Bonanza. This is actually a palette that I have literally never used. Last year, in 2019, in the spring, I was going to John Casablanca's modeling center school. We had these classes once a week. It was like an hour away from my house. And I can make a whole separate video about that. But it was about this time last year, in June, that we did like a final fashion show at the end of our class. On the day that we did it, we had 2 hours of prep time, and then the third hour was gonna be the actual like fashion show time. Everybody was arriving, everybody was getting ready, I needed to go to the bathroom. While I was in the bathroom, somebody else came in and just started like sobbing because they didn't realize I was in there. And I was like, uncomfortable, but also at some point they're gonna realize that they're not alone in here. So I left the stall. As soon as they heard somebody else moving around in the bathroom, they like sucked it up and like stopped. So I like left the stall and washed my hands and whatever. Before I left the room, I was like, if you need to talk, I'm here. And then I found out it was my friend, and she was crying because she didn't realize that today was the final day of the class because she had been out of town the previous week. She just like got the dates mixed up in her head. She was not prepared. She didn't have her outfits. She didn't have her makeup. She didn't have any of that stuff. And I was just like, okay, we have preparation time. There's like an upsale consignment store down the street. I have my car here. get in my car, I'm gonna go buy you some clothes, and we're gonna make this happen. Whatever, it's not a big deal. I was also one of the adults in the class. A lot of the people in the class were like teens to very young adults, like 18, 19 years old, and she was in that category of being a teenager, and I kind of felt like her mom because I was 10 years older than her, and I was like, someone's gotta take care of you, and today it's gonna be me. The show was happening whether she was ready or not, you know? I went and told the teacher, I was like, she's not prepared, I'm just gonna run down to the store, get her an outfit, we're gonna come back. And she was actually wearing something that day anyways that counted fine as one of the 2 outfits that we needed. So we went to the consignment shop and she found an outfit, and then we came back and she was like trying to collect herself and get into the mindset of today's the last day of class. We have a show. She was a black girl, and so I did not have a lot of makeup that would work for her, obviously. But what I did have that I could share was this eyeshadow palette. It was still in the box at the time. For some reason, I don't know why, I just had some unopened makeup in my collection because that was before I really started like paying attention to makeup enough to actually buy it. At that time, I was more interested in the drama that was going on. If you remember the spring of 2019, whoo, what a time. And I was like, listen, talk to the other girls, and if you need this, you're more than welcome to use it. The only person who has used this teeny tiny brown palette was my friend at the fashion show. It's just a nice memory for me because I get the feel goods about being able to help somebody, but also a lot of the girls who go into programs like that are really like pie-eyed and hopeful, and she was just so excited about the future, and I didn't want the class to end badly for her because of some miscommunication with like her parents and with the schedule and like these kind of things that were outside of her control. So whenever I can do something that's within my power to make something better for somebody else, I try to. I don't want this to come off as me being like, I'm so great, but just, you know, if you find yourself in a situation like that where you can help somebody out, there's times that having an extra eyeshadow palette around can really help somebody out, I guess. So this little palette is probably my new smallest palette, and it has the best memory attached to it. Palette worth the hype and palette not worth the hype. If my collection was larger, I would have a lot more to talk about. A lot of the palettes that I have were not necessarily hyped up in any way. So out of the palettes that I have that actually had some hype around them, worth the hype, honestly, Conspiracy palette. My first experience using Jeffree Star Cosmetics is this palette. Probably my only experience using Jeffree Star Cosmetics, but they're good. There's no way around it. They're freaking good palettes. If Jeffree Star was a less problematic person, I would be happy to throw my money at him, but he's full of problems. Leave me your suggestions on comparable brands to Jeffree Star Cosmetics if there is one. That would help me know like where to invest my money as I'm growing my makeup collection. Not worth the hype. The only palette I can point to in this case that, you know, got any hype to be not worth is the ColourPop Bare Necessities palette, because I've just struggled a lot with this palette. I find the mattes are a little more difficult to blend than I thought they were gonna be. While there are some really pretty shimmers in here, a lot of the shades are like so close together that when I use several browns or several purples, they just all kind of blend together into one color. Today is probably the most neutral I've ever made an eye look, and I mean, you tell me if it looks like it's kind of all one color, because I kind of feel that way. Yeah, like this shade, and this shade all basically look the same. This whole row up to here just all looks the same, and that 1, 2, 3, very little delineation in color. I just generally thought that this was gonna be a better palette than it was. Maybe it's just me like sucking at using neutrals, possible. I just heard such really good things about the ColourPop formula, and this was my first chance using it, and I love those shimmers, but the mattes have been not as impressive as people led me to believe that they would be. So yeah, to me it was not worth the hype because it's hard for me to use. But if you're great with ColourPop and if you're great with neutrals, maybe you can tell me what I'm doing wrong. So the second to last question is show a favorite palette from a favorite brand. I don't own enough makeup to really have like a favorite brand. So what I think I'm gonna do instead is tell a story. I did mention this in a video in the past, but I'm gonna tell you a story about a scammy brand. And not that the brand is necessarily scammy all the time, but I felt scammed. Profusion Palettes. are often sold at TJ Maxx and Marshalls. And when it was almost time for my modeling class to end, and for that fashion show I was talking about, I was just starting to expand my makeup collection. I needed a couple of just general palettes. So I got these two Profusion palettes at Marshalls. This one is called Amber Eyes. This one is called Berries. It was two separate palettes. I paid two separate prices for them. Guess what? I didn't realize until a few months ago, these two palettes are basically the same. They're literally basically the same color story. I have only found one shade difference between these two palettes. This yellow matte shade here in the Amber Eyes palette is not in the Berries palette, and instead we have this slightly more purple shade here, but every other shade is the same. I'm so mad about it. I don't know why I didn't notice it. I think that this one was sold like in a case, so I couldn't open it up and like literally look at them. And I could see this on the back, but like this doesn't show the colors on the back. You only get the colors here, and they look different than they look in real life when you open the box up. I was just pissed because I really just wanted like one like brownish palette and one like purple-ish palette, and that's kind of what I thought I was getting. And I'm very annoyed to realize that these are basically the same palette and I paid double the money for all the same colors. That pissed me off. Profusion, explain yourselves. Especially when you make it so that I can't open up the palette and look at the colors and see that they're the same.
As I'm thinking back through the story, I'm realizing that the packaging and the enclosed box, so I couldn't open the palette itself, may not have been Profusion's fault. That may have been Marshall's packaging it that way. However, it leads me to wonder why just that purple Berries palette was packaged that way, and I could open up the Amber Eyes palette and see the inside of that one. So basically I might actually be mad at Marshalls and not Profusion, but I'm not sure, and either way I'm still annoyed because I paid the price of two palettes for basically one palette, so I don't like it.
But so that's that story. I just wanted to complain about it. Okay, finally. This one is hard, but probably my most used palette would be this e.l.f. The New Classics palette. And I did do a video about using this palette. I'll link it above if you'd like to see. This has been my go-to palette for a while. Now that I have the Jeffree Star, this has kind of been demoted. But for a while, this was like my daily use, easy peasy palette, especially going to work, because there are a lot of good neutrals, but they're also mixed with a good amount of actual colors, and they're surprisingly like good quality, easy to work with, they stick around. This palette is underrated. Nobody's talked about it that I know of, but it's been a good palette for me. For $14, that was a good eyeshadow palette, and I still like it, and I still sometimes prefer it over the Bare Necessities palette. So that was my eyeshadow palette tag. This has been fun. It's weird to me to kind of have all my palettes sitting on this table here together. I don't usually like lay them all out here in front of me. There's some decluttering that needs to happen because there's definitely a few that I just don't really use. But I do appreciate all these palettes for what they are and the contribution that they've each made to my life in a variety of ways. Let me know in the comments below if you have tried any of the palettes that I mentioned and your thoughts on them, especially the BH Cosmetics Brazil palette that I haven't even used yet, the Bare Necessities palette, if you have better luck with using it than me, like tell me what I'm doing wrong. And Coastal Scents, what's going on with them? Why are they not relevant anymore? What happened? While you're down there commenting, I hope that you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and set your notifications to all. The little neighborhood here on my channel is really growing and I'm super excited about it. Thank you so much to everybody who is a new viewer and new subscriber, and welcome to the neighborhood. I'm so excited to have you. I'll also include a link for all of my American viewers to be able to register to vote. We've all seen the news recently, and I think that we all know there are some changes that need to be made, and the best way to make those changes is putting people into power who say that they're going to make those changes that we'd like. I hope that you take a minute and just make sure that you are registered to vote. It doesn't take long. It's easier than ever to vote and to register to vote nowadays. And don't forget about the options of absentee ballots and voting by mail if you know that you are not going to be able to go to the polls in November physically, or if you feel unsafe doing so. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I really, really appreciate you and your time and the fact that you are spending your time here with me. So much love. Bye. Happy birthday. It's Donald's birthday. Happy birthday.